Hello and welcome to Arn. This is Paul Bromwell, and today, right here on the Four Horsemen Network and on One True Sport for the first time ever, I'm joined by the Hall of Famer, the founder of the Four Horsemen, the creator of that spine buster, the 1A of tag team wrestling, my friend and yours. He's double A. He's Arn Anderson. Arn, how are you?
I'm great. Is it nice where you are?
It is nice where I am. I think it's like 78 degrees, so that's pretty nice.
Oh no, that's perfect.
Perfect.
It's 89 here, but it's not humid yet, so it's a beautiful day. Very nice.
Buddy, it's great weather. We're breaking out our short sleeve shirts, and there's a lot going on. So we're going to catch up our audience right here from the bat. First of all, I want to thank all of you. As I said, we're here live on two channels, not just one. So let's talk about it. The latest and greatest launch for us, One True Sport. And Arn, it was so fun. I got to hear you talk about it a little bit. You mentioned it when you were on Busted Open last week, and we'll get to that interview. But if you're new or just watching and not really understanding what One True Sport is all about, I'm telling you, we are so excited about this. I'm partnering with Dominic D'Angelo and Marcus D'Angelo. Arn, you're very familiar with those two guys, just salt of the earth, great dudes. That have put a lot of work and time and energy into everything that we do. And collectively, we've come together with our talent and our friends like Arn and others to produce this network and lots of fun announcements. But if you have a question about One True Sport at all, make sure you go to onetruesport.com, where you're going to find not only information about how to become a member, but also some really great merch that is constantly being updated daily, including the brand new Arn Anderson Hall of Fame t-shirt. That's right. Hall of Fame t-shirt that you can get exclusively right now on onetruesport.com. But Arn, we finally got our merch store up and running. More to be added. But I know for you and owning the Four Horsemen brand, the official home of the Four Horsemen, that's got to put a smile on your face. We're back up and running, man.
Well, I wouldn't put it out there if it wasn't still relevant. And you can ask a crowd of people how many know what the whole Four Horsemen means in professional wrestling. You're going to get a lot of hands up. So it's still relevant after all these years, which I think is really just incredible.
It is. And listen, it's because of guys like you, Arn, and really you carrying the banner for the Four Horsemen. And we get to see Barry and get to see Tully, who, by the way, right here, One True Sport on Thursday night, Tully's going to join us. I hope he has some fun Arn story.
Good luck.
We're going to have a good time together. But, man, so we're excited. So, again, OneTrueSportTV.com. Obviously, you're watching this. You know where to find it, and you can find out more about the membership. So I'll stop shilling there. But listen, Arn, let's talk about what you've been up to the last few weeks, because not only did you have that double shot for that in Kentucky and West Virginia, then you guys, headed on down the road June 8th. You were in Augusta, Georgia, as part of the Garden City Classic. How was that first double shot in a few years for you and Brock?
Well, it was a tournament, so he was lucky enough to get a win. And then he moved on to the next bracket, and he had another second match, which was next to last match of the night. Wasn't so lucky. He got caught with a quick one, 1, 2, 3, but he had two of the best matches that he's had. If I say so myself, each time he has a match with a guy that's got more experience than him, which is virtually everybody, a lot of veterans on these shows that have been around a long time. He just gets more cognizant of what's going on and what he's doing, and he gets better and better and better, and just real proud of him. It was really a good night. It was down around Augusta, Georgia, as Viral Pro Sports, and they were great people to work with. Had a good time, had some really major league fans come down and say hello, and it was always nice to meet them. So it was great.
Man,
we had a really good time.
Oh, that's great to hear. And especially, and I know how much you enjoy seeing and meeting the fans. And
I do.
Not only that, and I said it at the top of the show, you got to be on Busted Open, and you got to see your old buddy Dolph Ziggler. You got to talk with Thunder Rosa, LaGreca and group. Tell us about that experience, man. I had such a fun time. I was taking a walk at the local park down here, put the old headphones in, and I got to hear a little Arn Anderson, and it was so much fun listening to you and Dolph talk about chemistry in the ring. Talk about that experience.
Well, I think the world of Dolph and Rosa.
Yeah.
Got to know her a little bit while I was with AEW. You know, her reputation had preceded itself. She's a pro. Dolph I worked with the 19 years I was there pretty closely. And man, is he a pro. And I can see that he's having fun and she's having fun. And LaGreca, Dave, puts on I'm assuming he's the lead guy. He is. Not?
Yes.
He puts on something that every wrestling fan is going to enjoy. I know Bubba has a day and Tommy Dreamer has a day, and they're on 5 days a week, right?
Yeah, Mark Henry's a part of it too.
Mark, that's right.
Yeah.
So I was very, very honored to be on that show, and we just had some fun for a half hour. Before you knew it, time was gone.
The most fun I had listening to it was when you were giving Dolph a hard time about how he actually was going to get inside of his pocketbook there and buy your comic book.
Yeah.
You couldn't believe that.
Not happening.
You still don't think you did it.
I've never seen him in 19 years ever reach for his wallet for any reason, much less pull it out. But it sounded good for a moment.
Hey, it was such a good interview, guys. If you haven't checked it out, find out where all your wherever your podcast is, look up Busted Open if you don't already listen to it already. They have a huge audience. It starts about 20 minutes into last Friday's episode. I think Friday the 7th. And Arn, you're doing a fantastic job. So really enjoyed hearing you there. But before we get into February 1995, guys, listen, throw your questions in the chat. I want to make every effort to get to them. The easiest way to do that is Super Chat. Super Chat puts it in a different cube for me. Obviously, it helps in terms of some dollars for Arn and the show. But, man, I want to make sure I definitely get to those and as many questions as we can as we go through this. But Arn is on the road. We talked about it before, the Super Summer Sizzler Express Tour, the upcoming appearances with him and Brock. This weekend, Arn, June 14th through the 16th, Heroes Con, the Charlotte Convention Center. I know you've been looking forward to this one because you're just rolling out of bed and heading down the road a little bit, right?
Well, I'm going to have to get up really, really early and get to the gym, stretch my back out. If I don't, I'm going to be paralyzed by about one in the morning on those metal chairs, but not an issue. Can you believe I got to Charlotte in 85 and I have never done one of these type events, meet and greet, any of that kind of stuff in Charlotte, North Carolina. It's my first time. And Brock's going to be with me for the first time, which makes it special. And it's a big event. Really, really big one. So we're very excited about it. 3 big full days.
Man, that's great. And if you're in the Charlotte area, make every effort to be there. I'm telling you, meeting Arn Anderson is an experience that you'll never forget. I know firsthand the first time I got to meet you, Arn, and put my arm around your neck and get a picture with you. And it was just such a treat. So definitely take advantage of that. He's going to have them comic books with him, by the way, which we'll talk about more at the end of the show. But go ahead, flash it.
Brother, I don't go anywhere without this. Who'd have thunk it? Who'd have thunk I was going to be a superhero in a comic book? Oh, well.
My favorite is the picture of you with those abs, that head of hair. I mean, come on. When you say superhero, you ain't lying.
Believe it or not, I was not always old. Just the predominance of my life have I been old. I haven't been old since, say, 10, 12, 14. I think the abs might have been reaching a little bit. That might have been an embellishment, but
the artist took a few liberties with the pencil on the abs.
Take a liberty somewhere, guys.
Yeah,
give me a break. Come on. Just a little something.
Right. But so Arn will have the comics with him. And then Friday, June 28th, your old buddy James Ellsworth reached out to Tony Hunter and said, I'd love to have Arn in Hagerstown, Maryland for the Hagerstown with the Clown is the name of that show. But it's a Friday night. And so you're going to be there for that one.
I am. It's close to Baltimore, right?
Yeah.
So
oh, yeah.
we should get some of the Baltimore crowd, and that's always a good thing. They're in the top, I would say, 5 audiences of all time to support wrestling. So hopefully I'll get to see some of those folks. I'll get to see Ellsworth, who I, by the way, got him his job with WWE. Hope he remembers that.
Tell us real quick, if you can, how that happened.
Well, I mean, they had him at TV, and it was coinciding with Braun Strowman's debut. So we just worked out a couple of things that made Braun Strowman look like exactly what he is, a friggin' full-grown, full-blown monster. Worked a little spot where Ellsworth, who obviously is like me, he's not a body guy, but he somehow managed to get behind Braun and get a chokehold / sleeper around him in the corner, and Braun just took off across the ring, running with him on his back, on his neck, hanging on for dear life.
Looked like a toddler, just hanging on.
We just worked out a couple of things that made Braun look like Godzilla, and it was creative, and everybody was on board, and it worked for everybody, and Vince rewarded him with a position.
So cool. Yeah, man. Well, you're going to see him June 28th, Friday night. Now, I got to ask, you're going to be in the Baltimore area. I know June 30th.
No, I'm not. You're
not doing it?
I'm not doing it.
Okay. You see, we have been working.
We know what we're talking about. Yeah, we know. We're not going for the
seafood.
No big ass crab cakes. No.
Okay. All right. So then he'll be quickly out of Hagerstown, because that Sunday, June 30th, you're going back to Benton Convention Center in Winston-Salem with Brock and CW. Buddy, you're just racking up the miles.
I'm doing plenty, and it's fun, and they're all functional, and it's not flying coast to coast with a couple of connections or any of that. It's, man, I'm digging this drive, and AML is custom cut, custom made for us driving out of Charlotte. Everything is like under 120 miles. That's glorious.
It's a beautiful thing. We were just talking about long airplane flights before jumping on here, and you don't got worried nothing about that with AML. So
had my share, buddy. And they run a good show, and they have a great following. They have a great audience, and it's old school wrestling fans for the most part. Not all, but for the most part. And they got some talented kids working there. So
and good people running it too.
Everything, yes. Yeah. Tracy is a great guy.
Yeah, absolutely. July 8th, we got 2 more appearances, guys. We'll keep it rolling here. Springfield Lucky Horseshoes. That's Double J's. He's invested in that minor league baseball team, but it's 4 horseshoes night with Arn Anderson. And listen, you guys can be a part of it if you're in the area there in Springfield, Illinois. $45. You get an upgraded ticket. You get to hang out on the deck with Arn Anderson for 2 hours, and you have access, Arn, to an all-you-can-eat horseshoe bar. Buddy, I know you were like, you don't have to pay me as much if I get this all-you-can-eat for 2 hours gimmick.
See, that's where we still don't know each other all the way. The worst thing you can do when you've got 2 hours of having to hobnob and entertain our guests,
you're not
fans, the worst thing you can do is load up on a bunch of shit to eat. And now you're looking for a place to take a nap, and then it all comes tumbling down because you go from, well, you know what, he looks pretty good for 65 to Jesus Christ. Somebody go wake him up or make sure he's alive.
Is he in a coma? What
the hell? The old boy, how old is he? So I will be dancing around and trying to put my best foot forward and entertain folks that choose to show up. And I love baseball too. So
doing a little tap, it's going to be great. You see Arn dancing around there on the deck, and while the rest of them are stuffing their faces, he's going to be working.
I'll be working the room.
There you go. All right. Finally, July 18th through 21st. This is a big one, and we got to wrap up here with this one. The Dan Gable Hall of Fame, Arn, Waterloo, Iowa. It's going to be a great time. You are inducted into the National Wrestling Hall of Fame. And I got my airline tickets. I'll be there for that. And I know you, Aaron, and Brock will as well. We have the dinner and the ceremony. Brock wrestling the next night. And I don't know if you heard this or not, but the first announcement that came out is that you're going to be in Brock's corner for a match where he's taking on Wes Briscoe, and Jerry is going to be in his corner. And we got to know, Arn, are you planning on giving Mr. Briscoe any shit, or are you just going to mind your business, hang out in the corner? What should we expect in Waterloo?
If you don't just look real hard, you won't even know I'm there. The last thing I want to do is to give Jerry Briscoe in his element in Shooterville with a reason to come stretch me in front of God and everybody. You won't hear a peep out of me.
All right.
Just so everybody knows before they think expectations get too wild. In this business and in life, a wise man knows his limitations. Jerry Briscoe, will be just content to just watch this contest, however it turns out. Great. Win or lose. We don't have to get involved, Jerry. Just so you know. Matter of fact, we should not get involved.
There you go. I think it's just going to be fun to see you escorting your boys down to the ring together and being out there for them. I mean, just a legacy to see both of you guys there and your sons battling out. It's a fantastic match to have as part of a Hall of Fame weekend.
On a serious note, I'm happy and proud for both of those kids because they, it's a one-time shot at something that might and probably won't ever happen again. So Brock is not lost on that fact. I'm sure the Briscoes obviously are not. It just, I just hope it's as good as it can be. And let's look forward to it. I'm honored beyond belief to be involved in this whole weekend. That just is something else that I wasn't planning on. And it's another nice surprise.
I mean, think about it. For those of us that have been around for a while, wrestling fans as kids, early 80s, the Andersons and the Briscoes, and now here are their boys, two of the boys from that group getting together at the National Hall of Fame in 2024. I mean, it's a very cool moment.
Well, just the very words of Dan Gable's name being said and echoing in the halls and all the people that are recipients of this award prior to us, this year. I mean, the names are just unbelievable. It's just such a huge honor. No matter what sport it is, if you're inducted into the Hall of Fame, it means your body of work makes you special. You have done something that just about everyone else hasn't and hasn't been able to conquer. You have, and that puts you in that vein, and that's a big deal.
Well, Arn, it certainly is a big deal, and so many of us can't wait to celebrate either with you there or in spirit. And I'm sure here, the show following the Hall of Fame, we'll have an update all about it. And maybe if you're subscribed to the channel, we'll have some video content that we're going to take out there while we're there at the ceremony. So make sure you're on One True Sport. You're on Four Horsemen Network. Myself is planning to be out there. Marcus may come out with me. And if that's the case, we're going to get some behind the scenes video and things like that, some content for these channels. So it's going to be a very cool experience for all of us. But with that, I think it's time to talk a little bit about February 1995. How's that sound to you?
Sounds good.
Now listen, I want to say real quick, I do see we have a couple questions in the super chat. Efren and Joe, I'm going to get to those as quickly as I possibly can, but we got to dig in here and talk a little bit about why we're here today. And that's Arn's career and what was going on in WCW in February 1995. And Arn, in previous discussion, by the way, you're still the WCW Television Champion here, and you're engaged in a feud with none other than Johnny B. Bad, who, by the way, I heard his Mark Marrow's biography is currently being written and due out in the fall. He's a big fan of yours and has expressed some interest in potentially coming on the show towards the fall. and talking some things. So how do you feel about that?
Great.
Oh, I love it too. So I got
Fantastic.
connected with him, and we're going to do that. So keep your eyes peeled for that. But you guys had a standout match at the January Clash of Champions, which, by the way, for those that don't remember, Wrestling Observer deemed that the best match of the night. And the rivalry continued on WCW Saturday night before SuperBrawl. Arn, you and Johnny B. Bad wrestled to a 10-minute time limit draw, marking the third unique finish in this 6 to 8 week feud. So there's some varied conclusions to your prolonged program here. Do you think Johnny B. Bad was better in this position as the champion or when he was chasing you? And he wasn't champion obviously here, but did you prefer him as a champion, or did you like with him chasing you as you were the champion?
For the story of the World Television title and what that represents is, a lot of people need to really think about the rules. Whatever the time limit is, if you go through the time limit without a conclusion, we call that a Broadway, then it's not a tie, it's a victory for the holder of the championship, which was myself. I think it's much, much better if you have a babyface chasing me, and the last couple of minutes, I'm just scrambling for my life, just trying not to get beat. Because if I don't get beat, even though if I'm laying on the floor dead, I'm still going to the record books as the winner. And I think that's the best scenario you can have. Otherwise, I'm going to have to be kicking his ass that last 2 minutes, and that's probably not the best scenario for the audience.
And what I love here is WCW really takes their time with this feud between you and Bad, and it shows they were serious about telling a good story here and giving you Bad a chance to shine and going after that title, defending it. But it all culminates and sets up to Arn a lumberjack match for the rematch on WCW Main Event. Lumberjack match. Where do you stand on the idea, the stipulation of a lumberjack match? Are you a fan of those matches?
Not really. I think if it becomes too much about the people on the floor, which their job is only to throw the participant back in the ring, and that's it. A lot of guys get wound up and decide they want to take it to the next level, and they're wanting to get a kick in or a punch in, or now it becomes a different story. So I never was a guy that just thought that was a great scenario. Really, yeah.
I think their thought at this point was, hey, let's give Bad a shot because the stud stable continues to interfere in some of the matches here. And so that was, I guess, the logic behind it. But listen to this. The lumberjack match itself that you had with them, it lasts 4 minutes and 29 seconds. And they decide to air it on TV instead of the SuperBrawl pay-per-view. So that was kind of interesting, too, to have it kind of the night before instead of saving it for a pay-per-view. I'm not sure why you would make the decision to have your TV title on live TV versus not saving it for the next night on a pay-per-view.
Not my decision.
Yeah. If you were booking it and you had a television title, a mid-card title, I mean, I would think you'd probably want to save it for at least the Sunday night event, opening card match. I don't know.
Well, I don't know that it's pay-per-view worthy, to be honest with you. How many times can you roll out and get thrown back in?
True. With that stipulation, good point.
With that step, that's maybe not for the best thing to help build the show, pay-per-view. You know, you can only do that so many times, and then it just starts to look the same like the previous 3 times you got through back in.
You know what they decided on instead to climax this feud? At the Uncensored pay-per-view, they had an unsanctioned boxer versus wrestler match. Remember that one?
Oh, yes. Yes, I do. I also recall getting a trash can thrown over my head by his manager. And Johnny B. Bad then proceeded to light that trash can up with me in it. You know, this guy was a Golden Gloves boxer.
That's right.
For a shoot.
Yeah. New York Golden Gloves boxer yeah.
So if it wasn't, if he chose not to not kill you and just left it in there pretty good, you knew the guy was,
yeah.
Know what I mean?
Throwing him in.
And we tried to make that entertaining, boxer versus wrestler, because he had on gloves, right?
Yeah, and we'll cover that one more when we get to that month. But I want to ask you and Mark at this point, you and Johnny B. Bad, were you guys, what was your relationship like behind the scenes?
Great. The guy looked like $1 million. Good God, he was tanned, handsome, good physique. When he walked in the room, his gear was immaculate for that character. He walked in the room, you went, that guy's a star.
Arn, let's talk about another buddy of yours. And this is someone that's you're obviously close to. Even to this day, your wife's close with his wife. And that is Barry Darsow. Because here in February 1995, he's the Black Top Bully. And think about all the characters that he's been, whether it was Crusher Khrushchev, Smash from Demolition, Repo Man. In your experience, you've observed that not every talent can overcome a less than ideal gimmick. But has there ever been instances where the gimmick itself was so flawed in your mind that it just really hindered anyone's ability to make it work, regardless how talented they were?
Well, I don't think you can overcome the guy going through the wall.
That's you're pretty much failed from the get-go. You're done. Dunzo.
Are we going to say his name?
The Shockmaster.
He's such a great guy, and he's a huge guy. He is a monster. Tall, big, strong, 600 probably pound bencher and all that stuff. To hinder him with anything other than just some gear and let his size and strength be his gimmick. He's just one of those guys that the office knew they needed to do something with him. It's like Barry Darsow. Here's a guy 300 pounds that could move, that could work, and was a very good performer. But the more times you start switching his character, the audience got tuned into it and figured out, oh, that's used to be Demolition, or that used to be Black Top Bully. And I think in the back of a wrestling fan's mind, if they can't figure out what to do with him, there must be something missing, when a lot of times they're not. They should have just left the character for what it was and do your best to, if he moved from one company to the other, have one switch of character, and that's the end of it.
Yeah. I think you think of some like guys that were very talented wrestlers and had those gimmicks that were harnessed to them. And I know you've always said, buddy, I'm so glad I just got to be Arn Anderson my whole career.
Yep. They didn't change anything except our manager was Bobby Heenan, and he was on JJ's level. They were both, in my estimation, the two best. That's the only change we made. Our gear was the same. We just didn't get to do promos. And if you go back and look at it, we didn't have ring music, which was okay, because we would normally come out to Rick's music anyway. We didn't have music with Crockett, so that wasn't a loss. But no doing this.
That's right.
That was out. That they jerked that second TV. So
I'm just glad when you arrived and, there wasn't anything weird like, hey, Red Rooster.
Clown.
Right, clown. Be Doink's partner, and be whatever.
I was very thankful for that, too, because, it's too late. Once you put your notice in and you've left and you've went to the opposition, if they would have walked in and threw two halves to a horse and said, okay, guys, you're my horse.
You're the ass, and
Tully, you're the horse's ass, Tully. I'm the horse's head. But what would you do other than try to make it work? Because
right, try to put the suit on and gallop down the aisle.
Wow.
Here comes the horse. Oh man. Hey, that's like the polka dots for Dusty. You know what I mean? I mean, come on.
He was smart enough to make it work.
He did.
He didn't sell it. He didn't act like he was in any shape or form rattled by it. He was just Dusty with polka dots.
So you got Blacktop Bully here. Arn, I'll ask you one more question about gimmicks, then we'll move on because we have a situation here with Harley Race. Did you ever even think about, man, if I get to WWF, this was prior, Crockett leaving, and if they were to ask us if we wanted to be a gimmick, did you ever think in your mind of a potential gimmick for yourself at any point in your career?
That Horseman thing was so hot, Paul.
Okay.
I thought we were set. I mean, I didn't, denying this instead of taking it and running with it and just adding on to it. That it was his call, but man, he could have made himself a lot of money and us a lot of money if he would have just took it and ran with it.
Well, I'm glad he didn't, because now you're the trademark owner of it, buddy.
Yes.
Bingo. Well, let's talk about Harley Race, because I mentioned it, and he is in a little bit of a situation here, Arn. He's absent due to a serious auto accident. It did create a serious challenging situation for WCW, especially considering the planned post-match angle involving Race in the Hogan match at the Clash. But despite him not being present, Race's name was mentioned multiple times during the event, leading to some confusion on the air. WCW chose not to acknowledge that Race had an accident on television. It led to some awkward moments during pre-taped segments and live commentary. Arn, there was speculation that Ric Flair could potentially fill in the void left by Harley, potentially returning as Vader's manager to fuel a rivalry with Hulk Hogan. But man, this incident, Arn, highlights the delicate balance of maintaining kayfabe in wrestling, and even in the real, the face of real life events affecting, storyline. But I want to talk a little bit about Harley's car accident here, because it does lead to his retirement. He's got injuries. It's such a huge blow for this legendary figure. Did you ever have any discussion with Harley? Because listen, now you both have this shared experience of having to retire early due to injury. He was injured in a match against Hogan at Saturday Night's Main Event with his stomach, and then all of a sudden, now here he is as a manager. Now he's in a car accident, and he's out of the business in terms of retiring. Did you guys ever have any conversations about that while he was still with us?
No. I was in awe of Harley, just like several people that came before me, but I was in awe of Harley, and I think in the back of our mind we all thought, well, it's just something else he'll overcome, because he's just such a tough son of a gun. I mean, he was one of the benchmarks. He was one of the measuring sticks when you talk about, okay, I know, I get it, you guys work hard, you beat yourselves up and all that, but who's one of the tough guys? Who's really tough? Well, that's one of the first names out of everybody's mouth, Harley Race. And you just hate to see something like that happen. That's totally out of his control.
We end up bringing this up a lot on the show because it's relevant, and it was just seeing Harley, a few months back, was it on Dark Side of the Ring, the story of Harley Race? Did you get to check that one out too?
Yeah, yes, sir. 100%.
So well done. And it gives you insight. And like you said before on the show, there's sometimes you watch these episodes and you were like, man, really? I didn't know that was all going on in that person's life or behind the scenes. And so it's fun and enjoyable, or interesting, should I say, for even you as talent that worked with other guys to kind of learn their backstories.
In those days, there's no social media, no telephones, no cell phones, none of that. And when you went to a territory, you were pretty much secluded from everything going on in the rest of the wrestling world. Believe it or not, wrestling magazines, Pro Wrestling Illustrated, we got a lot of our scoops just like the fans did. We would read stuff. You might hear, if there was something really serious happening in another territory, if it made it through the Wife network, they made a phone call from the home phone, made it to another one, da-da-da-da-da. That was our communication. You'd come in and oh, did you hear about so-and-so? He was in so-and-so tonight and broke his leg. You know, so-and-so had a car wreck, boom, boom, boom. And we would get it from our wives.
Wow. Yeah, it's crazy to think about, but you're absolutely right. Totally different time and different era. There weren't cell phones. You were looking for the nearest payphone at the airport or wherever you could, right?
Store stop.
Yeah.
You would call home, collect. Okay, we just got out of there. We should be home at 2:30. See you then. Boom.
Yeah. Well, Arn, we'll move on from there. And another development that takes place here. February is a big month. There's a lot of different things going on here. And that's it. WCW decides to expand their total number of pay-per-views. In the February 20th, 1995 edition of the Wrestling Observer, Dave Meltzer discussed the decision to increase the pay-per-view events and raise the price of the events as well. So they're pushing the boundaries here with pay-per-view. They're replacing June and November's Clash of the Champions, so that's no longer. And now they're up to 9 pay-per-views, Arn, and 2 clashes in 95. And so it's more major, frequent major events, more pay-per-view revenue. What do you think about this? As a wrestler, performer at the time, does this impact you at all? Did you foresee any challenges? Were there opportunities from this strategy as far as the introduction of more pay-per-view? What are your thoughts on more pay-per-view, quite frankly?
Well, more is not better. It waters down your product. I was a big fan of the 4 a year, and not just because it's 4, before somebody says it, smart ass. Because you have a pay-per-view, you have your blow-offs with the particular matchups that you have. You blow them off. Now you've got 3 or 4 months to build to the next one. And you can completely start over, change opponents, do something on the tail end of that show that will bleed you into the next pay-per-view, but you're not going to blow that off for 3 or 4 months. And you could just take your time. Just the way it's meant to be, episodic, male soap opera, and just give them a taste each week on TV and let it build. Leave them wanting more, not less.
That is such the problem now. It feels like everything is rushed, angles right to the next, to the next, to the next. And it's like, and there's such a craving right now in wrestling for storytelling, for really good storytelling. Obviously, what we saw with the Bloodline the last few years has been a compelling, very compelling angle. But now that we've seen that, we've been exposed to it, we got to enjoy that. We want more of that as wrestling fans are, and we want that story. And sometimes it feels like it's so challenging because, like, 3 hours on Monday night, then you have NXT Tuesday night, 2 hours of Dynamite on Wednesday night, Thursday night TNA, Friday night SmackDown, Rampage, Saturday night Collision. There's so much going on. Then you got a pay-per-view. It's 7 days a week, and things are moving so quickly. And and to your point, the pay-per-views are increasing, and I feel like a lot because of that. I feel like a lot of things gets rushed, and there's you don't let it breathe. You don't let it breathe.
I think we all feel that way. It's when you are working for a particular company, it's their sandbox. You're just playing in it. The only thing I could advise people to do, because there is not enough devotion to the storytelling and the little piece each week alone, is for the talent to kind of take it by the reins and do that in the ring. Don't give them everything you got every week, because now the fans just get desensitized to it.
Conditioned. That's right.
If I've hit a big tornado DDT 3 weeks in a row and I hadn't beat anybody with it, it's pretty much a dead move, or I'm not executing it properly, whatever it may be perception-wise with the audience. So you just got to protect your story and protect your company and protect your opponent and dial it down a little bit. Doesn't mean you can't do something that's going to be memorable, and you should try to do something memorable in every match that you're in every single time. That doesn't mean necessarily higher impact.
No, well said. Dave Meltzer continues here with the whole increase of pay-per-views. So I'm going to read a little bit of this. He says, WCW heavily relies on pay-per-views as their main source of revenue at this time, with recent events grossing significant amounts, especially the Hogan Flair matchups. These events are crucial for the company's financial stability, offsetting potential losses. However, there's a concern about oversaturation. That's what we just talked about, and the risk of diminishing returns. Despite declining buy rates in the industry in recent years, both the WWF and WCW have seen these declines stabilize. Arn, what do you think here would be the key for WCW so they can now navigate this delicate balance between we got to maximize revenue and avoid what you and I just talked about, oversaturation? Is there any kind of a strategy that you could come up saying, hey, yes, we know we're going to have more pay-per-views. So what do I, as a booker, as someone that's putting this together, say, how do I be effective in balancing this all out? Because I know pay-per-view is our big revenue generator.
If I knew the answer to that, I probably wouldn't be sitting here. I'd be probably in Aruba in a mansion on the beach.
That sounds like a beautiful thing, Arn. So totally, I get it, but honestly, that's what we just talked about. That is still a balance that current product, has struggles to figure out as well too.
I'm a big fan of heat, and if you have a superhero, and this is going to be a little bit disheartening to the baby faces, but you decide who your superhero is, and he's here. I would devote a little more time and concentration on getting 3 or 4 bad guys over here red hot, so that each time you finish by getting a win with your finish, which is what's called a blow-off, you've got a guy that has won 7 or 8 or 9 weeks, but in middle of the card matches, so that now he's ready to step up and take that role. And you have to devote that TV time. If you go back and look at the TVs back in the day, NWA, they were devoted. You didn't see the Rock and Roll Express and Dusty and Magnum and all the top baby faces. They didn't wrestle on TV every week. The heels got the TV time because we were going to get our ass kicked in the house show that night. TV was for us to get our heat.
Well, that, and they were maybe cutting promos. They were standing behind that interview desk, telling stories, getting the build going.
But if you wanted to see them kick our ass, you had to pay for it.
There you go. We'll wrap up the pay-per-view talk with this last point. Meltzer says, by the way, you want to know why they're kind of moving towards more pay-per-view model? Obviously, it's making more money. But Hogan, he earned $4.46 million alone in '95 from pay-per-view. So,
wow.
Kind of a nice payday for him. But again, in today's society, I think fans are willing to pay for it if it's quality content. If it's a can't miss, hell of a show type deal, then we're going to pay for it. And so if there's an increase, so be it. But as hardcore wrestling fans, we're all in if the product delivers. So let's move on. Let's talk about SuperBrawl 1995. As I mentioned earlier on, you're not on the show. So you wrestled the night before with Johnny B. Bad. But this show is on pay-per-view, and it's in Baltimore, Maryland, home of Jimmy's Famous Seafood. It's at the Baltimore Arena. That's right. I know I'd get you excited there. They showed up for this one. 13,390 fans in attendance. 10,000 of them paid for it. And they had a gate of $165,000. Fans of The Observer were not fans of this show, Arn, as only 12% gave the show a thumbs up. 73% gave it a thumbs down. So you ready to hear what this card had to offer that night?
Let me see why they might have done that.
All right.
Run her down.
Here we go. We got Paul Roma and Alex Wright. This one opened the pay-per-view and went over 13 minutes. Wright controls a lot of the match. And the finish takes place when Roma and his partner Orndorff are arguing Wright drops kicks Roma into Orndorff and rolled up Roma for the win. And controversially, however, Roma does kick out of the pinfall, but they still count the 3. And he's fired less than a month later for refusal to put Alex Wright over. Do you ever remember hearing that story?
No.
Yeah.
Whew.
Paul was not a fan of Alex Das Wonder Kid Wright.
Oh, well, I see. I was probably so far away from that at that time, I just didn't notice.
Yeah, I mean, well, this is where you're starting to work for the office a little bit more. So I didn't know if you had a recollection of that at all. But man, this is not a good move when you're trying to maintain a job with WCW at the time. I don't understand why someone would risk losing a job by refusing to do business.
Especially if you spend a lot of time at the competitors and not necessarily going to get a job going back there.
Oh, bingo. Yeah, that not smart.
Do not ever risk your career on the outcome of a match. It's so foolish because the next day it's never as big as you seem to think it is when you don't want to do something business-wise.
We're going to go through this lineup pretty quickly here because I do want to get to some chat questions before we wrap up tonight. And at 8 o'clock hour Eastern time, Medusa paving the way right here on One True Sport. So make sure you check it out. I know you're excited to hear all from Medusa. You talked about her show the other day on social, and she was so excited to see you put her over. So we're really excited about that at 8. So we'll keep moving. You got Hacksaw defeating Bunkhouse Buck in 12 minutes, your old buddy there. And Ming attacks Hacksaw at the conclusion of it with the old nerve hold. And so that sets up a match for the two of them at Uncensored. Ming really hadn't been used that much at this point. He's still the bodyguard, but now he's getting involved. And his first matchup is Hacksaw. So that's going to be fun. Two big brutes mixing it up. Yeah. And then we move on to a gentleman you and I were talking about before we started the show, Arn, and that's Kevin Sullivan. Kevin and Dave Sullivan, they wrestle again. And it ended when Kevin runs Dave into Butcher's face and rolls him up for the pin. So now we're starting to see this thumbs down stuff, okay? It's the post-match angle saw the Butcher clutching his face from the move and Kevin walking out on him. But what does that signify? It signifies the ending of the Three Faces of Fear. But fear not, Double A, because here we go. It's the beginning of the Dungeon of Doom.
Oh.
So it's pretty big time there.
So the underlying story for that, for those that know, Beefcake had his face destroyed in the boating accident, right? So that was what that was. That was considered a cheap shot and maybe using an old injury to further your career. But you would have to know that to get that finish, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you would have to have that knowledge and be a observer reader or whatever the case may be, a magazine or whatever, to know that was the case. So those casually at home fans,
it might have been, yeah. So
yeah,
I get it.
Yep. You move on. Harlem Heat with Arn Show favorite wrestler Sister Sherry defeating the Nasty Boys. That was a DQ after wrestling for 18 minutes. But anytime you got to picture the Nasties and Harlem Heat with Sherry, got to be a fun match. But it was an over-the-top disqualification. Second referee reverses the decision, awards. So, again, what I'm trying to get here, it's a cluster finish to wrap up that match.
The Heat should have just won.
Yeah. Blacktop Bully, your buddy we talked about earlier, and Dustin Rhodes, they wrestle in a 16-minute match, which, by the way, Dustin's still out there wrestling on my TV. I just saw him wrestling last week. He's incredible. But Colonel Parker gets involved here, breaks up the pin. So Dustin suplexes him into the ring. And, man, Barry goes 16 minutes here. Any surprise to you, Arn, that Barry held his own against Dustin?
No. Like I said, he's a pro, buddy. Go back and watch his work as a Russian, watch his work really big time as Demolition. And he's 300 pounds. 300-pounders don't move like that.
Speaking of big boys, we'll move on. I know we're going rapid fire here, but it's Avalanche and Big Bubba Rogers. They take on Sting and Randy Savage. This match goes over 10 minutes. And during the match, there's an altercation between Savage and Ric Flair. Yes, Rick. He seated ringside for this one, and Savage worked a very strong match for his part. Sting body slammed Avalanche, who was billed at 516 pounds. That's
Wow.
pretty impressive.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I bet he was close to that weight.
Oh, yeah, no doubt about it. The match ends when Savage takes out Bubba with the elbow, and Sting uses a crossbody on Avalanche from the other corner to get the pin and the victory. And that gets us to Vader versus Hogan. Main event at Uncensored. It seemed disjointed with Vader not presented as a critical threat to Hulk. But Arn, do you think WCW could have handled this program differently to better establish Vader as a formidable challenge to Hulk, like really that big, dominant heel? Because man, he was that for WCW for so long. But when Hogan came in, he wasn't. They really didn't establish that dominance. We talked about how Hogan, no sold a Vader bomb from Vader, the last month that we got together. I feel like they could have done a better job of establishing Vader as that big, nasty heel that he was.
And have 2 or 3 in the wings. That was what we talked about a minute ago. You got to have heat on heels. It's in our business, you have to have dragons and dragon slayers. It's an old quote from some of the old timers. You don't need dragon slayers unless you have dragons, and you need it. I would suggest that Leon probably was not built properly going into this match to draw any money.
And it ends in DQ, and Flair's involved again, and it has some interference. So that's, again, we're seeing why 73% of the Observer fans gave it a thumbs down. They decide they're going to do a strap match for the next pay-per-view. And so there you go. We got another DQ to end the major pay-per-view show. What did you think overall? Is it 73% thumbs down? Is that warranted for just that quick rundown that I did of this card?
It's warranted by Hogan not winning and right in the middle.
Yeah.
With his finish.
Yeah. Send the fans home happy.
If he's your guy, if he's
the bread and butter, he's the $4.5 million man this year at pay-per-view.
He wins with his finish.
Meltzer reviewed the event's highlights and lackluster matches, and he said, despite the enthusiastic crowd, just too many disappointing finishes. He notes Vader's strong presence in other segments compared to the main event. So lots going on here. Not a shining moment or great pay-per-view for WCW. I don't think Meltzer was too hard on this show, or his criticisms for that matter.
He's probably close to being right on.
Yeah, spot on for sure.
You can write stars, and we've said this too, Paul. You can write a star's name on one side of the paper and another star on the other, and you can do that 9 times, and you may have on paper, wow, there's a lot of star power there, but there's no story.
Arn, there's a few things that I want to touch on before we ask some questions, and I see all of you there in the super chat. We're going to get to all of those in a moment. But, man, we are super excited. I mentioned it already. Medusa 007 herself paving the way, 8 o'clock Eastern. And then Thursday at 7 o'clock, Tully is joining us. I can't wait. That's going to be 4 Horsemen and 1 True Sport. But, man, how much fun does it sound when I'm like, Arn, here you are at 6. We got Medusa at 8. We got Tully at 7 on Thursday. That's a hell of a lineup, isn't it?
You're loaded down pretty good there, buddy. I'm interested in all of it.
I can't wait to see how Medusa and her co-host, who we've done a pretty good job keeping kayfabe, work together on their first episode. He is a firecracker, and he does a great job, and I cannot wait to see how that all works out. So make sure you check it out. We want to update some folks on the comic book. Now, I said this at the beginning, and bear with us, stay with us, don't go anywhere, because we found out that the paperback version of your comic book are selling out rapidly, very quickly. It's nearly sold out between Simon & Schuster and Amazon. There's a low stock remaining, but we have got our hands on the Kickstarter edition hardcover, and they are currently being shipped to our merch, to our person that works in the merch department. And these are vault copies of the hardcover edition. We're calling them web store exclusives. So you need to keep an eye out for those, because they're going to only be available. These hardcover vault copies on onetruesport.com. So I'm saying that to say, if you want that Kickstarter edition hardcover, we have a quantity of those coming. So more to come once they're on the store. Look out on social media. We'll announce it. But I'm telling you, that's what you want. That's what my copy is. Arn, we're excited to get our hands on those. We were able to work with the team. They offered them to us and said, you know what, with One True Sport taking off, the merch store open, what do you think about this opportunity? And we said, we're all for it.
Well, and people that have the hard copies, those last forever, and they're just cool looking.
They are. They're badass, and they're great for autographs too when you meet the enforcers.
Yes.
So check that out. And this is something we're going to start talking about more, Arn, because Ultra Pro Wrestling from Hyper Focus Games. This is a game. I know we have a lot of folks that listen to your show and other shows that are gamers. And wrestling games, if you love the classic Nintendo 64, the N64 wrestling games, man, this is it with enhanced modern features. Arn Anderson, Magnum, RVD, Jake the Snake, just a few from One True Sport, downloadable characters at this game. And you can find them on Twitter and Instagram at UpWVideoGame. That's at UpWVideoGame. And you can also join their Patreon, patreon.com/Ultra Pro Wrestling for exclusive content. They have 100+ base characters. And then, as I said, free agent downloadable characters. And that's where Arn Anderson comes in. Guys, listen, the game's going to be released in 2025, but there's a demo coming to Steam the third quarter of 2024. More details, ultraprowrestling.com. Arn, I cannot wait to get my hands on this game. And there's going to be so many really cool matchups. I can get you versus Magnum again in a video game. Can you believe that?
We get to answer the question, who's got the better DDT, me or Jake? I know it's his move.
Ooh.
And I know I stole it. But then there's that question of execution.
So we're very excited about Ultra Pro Wrestling. Check them out, ultraprowrestling.com. Guys, in 2 weeks, June 25th, 6 p.m. Eastern, we turn the show over to all of you. Ask Arn almost anything. But with that, I want to get to some questions here to wrap up this week's show. Efren Guzman, he says, great content as always. Arn, what's your favorite Arn Anderson action figure of yourself and favorite tights you've ever worn? God bless you guys. Thank you, Efren.
I like the 4-pack.
Oh, the 4 Horsemen pack that the WWE released.
Just because I'm honored to be in that box with those guys, for God's sakes. And I think red and white are the colors.
Okay, red, white are the colors of your favorite tights.
Yeah, I think so. Boots, red and white boots, white tights, or red boots, or red tights, one or the other.
All right, let's go to the next one. Efren, thank you so much. Joe Pierce, Arn and Paul, love the show. Do you think a program like NXT would get Brock the amount of reps he needs to grow as a wrestler? Would that coax you back to the WWE family too?
He's probably not time yet to even consider that, but he's yes, of course.
What an opportunity, right? To be in that training environment with those folks.
It's also good to go in the door with all your fundamentals in line and your reps and your best you can, get a little ring shape in when you walk in the door, other than just a athlete from a different sport walking in. So that's what we're trying to do, is just hone his mechanics and expand his thought process. And it's he'll be somewhere soon.
It's a process, right? And you're getting him, and he's getting there.
And there's no hurry. That's not like rush.
Sure.
Get you a spot, at one of the major promotions. It's just make sure you do things right on the way up. That's what we're looking at.
We're going to go to Liam Evans, and he says, hey, Arn and Paul, just quickly wanted to thank Arn for wishing me a happy birthday on Sunday and welcoming me to the One True Sport family. It was an honor. Arn, it's part of our traveling champion package is that you get a birthday wish as a member from one of the legends of our group. And Arn, you did that for him and some other folks that haven't gotten their wish yet. They're still in June, and that's coming. But Liam, happy birthday, man, and welcome to the One True Sport family.
Definitely.
Yeah. So cool. All right, let's go to Riddler. Riddler 3579. He's up next. Said, Arn, 80s, 90s, and Jack Briscoe 60s and 70s were my two favorite wrestlers. Thank you, Arn, for your commitment.
Thank you for remembering. Sounds like you are a long-term, serious fan. While to even be mentioned in the same sentence with Jack Briscoe is pretty stout. Thank you.
Yeah. Riddler, thank you, Riddler3579. We appreciate you. Larry Johnson is up next. He says, thanks, Mr. Anderson, for what you still do for the business.
Thank you. Appreciate it. I enjoy every minute of it.
Yeah, Larry, appreciate you being here with us tonight. Mark Webster's up next. He said, can I get a Dothan, Alabama story? I understand my hometown had some good shows in its day.
Is that your hometown, Dothan?
It's got to be his hometown. Yeah.
Brother, great town, dirt floors, rowdy fans. I actually got cut in Dothan. Making my way back from a ring, a guy reached over, and all I felt was just like somebody had slapped me on the back.
Oh, shit.
Got back to the locker room and had a pretty good slice. Come to find out, somebody had decided to use their pocket knife on me.
Get the hell out of here.
Thank God it wasn't deep.
Mark Webster, you hear that? Dothan, Alabama, trying to cut up Arn Anderson back in the day. My goodness.
Must have been doing my job.
There you go. Let's get to an Instagram, a wrestling historian. Interesting. Right off the topic that we talked about here, how would you have handled Paul Roma if he went into business for himself and no soldier offense during a pay-per-view match? Thank you.
I don't think that would have ever happened. I don't know. We would have probably had to handle it then.
Yeah.
But I'm not saying, the one thing I do not want to come across as a hard ass or whatever. There's different ways you can handle it if a guy's not selling you stuff. I don't think that would have ever happened. And, Paul got a little bit of a bad rap for being chunked into Tully Blanchard's role with the Horsemen. And that's not fair. It's never been fair to him because the audience was clamoring for Tully to come back. That's what they wanted. Nothing was going to be acceptable other than that. And he got chunked into that position with no choice. So
were you a guy that was like, hey, let's talk, I'm going backstage, that's where the conversations are happening, if something like that were to happen in the ring?
Oh yeah. I mean, that's not the place to get in a fist fight in a live match. That's terrible business.
Sure.
That is all handled usually backstage, and just make sure what you think you saw or were a part of was really what you were a part of.
Arn, we have one more super chat, and then we got an exciting announcement. Darren Staley, who would win in a shoot match today? He's a comedian. Arn versus Brock.
My Brock?
Yeah.
I got no chance.
The young buck, he's got it, doesn't he?
He is young, uninjured, strong. Yeah, those days I stretched him a little bit about 4 years ago. And I just got him down in a Navy ride and got him trapped, and he could not move. And I just held on basically, but those days are long gone.
Those days are over. He's throwing up some weight in the gym, isn't he?
Yeah, he's strong in that weight room.
Yeah, that's great. And last announcement I wanted to have, Dustin Pike became a YouTube member for One True Sports. So welcome, Dustin, to the family.
Welcome, buddy. Dustin. Welcome.
Yeah, so glad and love to see that right here live on the show. So welcome, Dustin. Make sure you send your information to info at onetruesport.com. That way you can get all the great RSS feed and all that you're eligible for. And I will say that if you're a member and haven't done that, that's the best way to make sure you send us information at info at onetruesport.com. We'll get you taken care of. Arn, we're ready to rock and roll out of here tonight. We got over, we have a huge audience watching, so I'm really excited about it. Tuesday, June 25th, 6 p.m. Eastern. Ask Arn almost anything. Get your questions ready. And in the words of the American dream, Dusty Rhodes, make it good. And maybe you'll get over. On behalf of the enforcer, Arn Anderson, this is Paul Bromwell. And we'll see you right back here on the 25th on Arn.
Bingo.